Forgotten Realms, Ravenloft, Eberron, great and vastly detailed worlds to play in, with pre-written adventures and established lore. Many enjoy the joys of these settings without ever thinking about it twice, but for others it's only a matter of time before they notice the very distinct lack of anime catgirls in these settings, and something snaps in those people, and that's when one decides to create their own world. If you are such a person, rejoice, for here I am, a dubious dog with no credibility whatsoever, to give you my very own tips on how to do just that. In this first video, I would like to talk about the things to think about before even starting making maps, lore, history and plots. The theme. Do you want a dark post-apocalyptic setting with very grey morals and scarcity of resources? Or maybe a steampunk world where technology rapidly evolved in a very short span of time? Or perhaps you want to create an almost unexplored world with vast oceans and one giant nation keen on drinking tea and led by a single monarch that is at the beginning of their gigantic colonization effort, which may or may not lead to a massive exploitation of other civilizations by a single government-funded company that might or might not start illegally selling opium to other nations, making the nations very addicted, with the company having a monopoly on said substance? But I digress. Establishing the theme of your setting can vastly improve your overall process. The outline you have doesn't need to be detailed or coherent, just a series of ideas that seem unique or cool, a foundation upon which you may then create your world. If you are feeling brave, there is also the possibility to pursue few key overarching storytelling themes. For example, the intrinsic theme of almost all high fantasy, good versus evil, or order versus chaos, technology against nature. Exploring these themes in your world might make for an interesting conflict, and can again give you something to work with, even before starting the entire world building process. Campaigns and rulebooks. Before you create a setting, it is important to find out whether there are any game systems that might work with what your idea of the world is. It's not exactly fun to create a detailed world with modern firearms and magic and fantasy monsters, only to realize your special and unique world is so unique in fact, that you can't really play in it due to lack of relevant rules. Unless you are playing Fate, in which case create whatever the hell you want. You either have to be confident in your ability to homebrew or find a system that works with your world. And also there are more tabletop RPGs than just Dungeons & Dragons 5e. D&D is great because it is quite easy to build upon and add homebrew stuff to, at least for fantasy games. But D&D in general is very combat focused, and while you may modify it, you can't really change the whole premise of a system, so if you feel like you are restricted in your storytelling by your game system, try exploring some others. Even if they are not what you're looking for, you might find some interesting gameplay ideas in them if nothing else. Thievery. No matter how unique you are trying to be, what you are going for has probably already been done in some way, and let me emphasize this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a phrase that I've heard some time ago that deeply resonated with me. The originality of a GM's world is decided by the obscurity of the source they are stealing from. Or something like that. I encourage you to take ideas and things you like or find interesting from your favorite shows, books, and other D&D campaigns, or anywhere really, and put them into your campaign. Just don't make it too obvious. Having a dark, armored, oathbreaker paladin serving an evil emperor whose name is Darth Vader might not go unnoticed by your players and might lessen the immersion, despite their inability to often solve basic puzzles. If you know you are going to play with players from different countries, there is a little sneaky idea of mine I would call the way of the Witcher. Use monsters and some basic mythology and folklore ideas from your very own local folklore. Of those of you non-Slavic folk who have played the Witcher games, how many of you have heard of Noon Wraiths, Strigas or Vodyanoi before these games? Not many, I assume, and that's my point. Having your world be an amalgamation of stolen ideas is completely fine if you stitch it together well enough, and if you add some of your own spice to it, no one might even know. Some of you, however, might want to create an utterly original world without really borrowing anything. All power to you if you want your dwarves loving trees and wearing silk and your elves living underground and digging for riches. Go ahead. Creating something unique by just subverting established things can work, but beware that subverting for the sake of subversion and uniqueness can often lead to a controversial slippery slope. That's all from me for today. There is probably more to talk about, but these were the points I thought most important for this short series of tips. Next time we shall probably begin with world creation. This tavern's closing for now. You are all welcome when we open again. Fare thee well.